Chapter 7, The Aftermath. Anika awoke to the gentle touch of a hand on her shoulder. She opened her eyes to find herself lying in a comfortable bed, surrounded by soft blankets and pillows. "Good morning, Anika," said a familiar voice. It was the village healer, a kind old woman who had always been a friend to Anika. Anika sat up and rubbed her eyes. "What happened? Where am I?" "You're in my home," said the healer. "You collapsed outside the village, and some of the villagers brought you to me. You've been asleep for 2 days. 2 days?" Anika gasped. "What about the monster? Is everyone okay?" The healer smiled. "Yes, thanks to you. The monster is dead, and the village is safe. The villagers are calling you a hero." Anika felt a surge of pride and relief. She had done it. She had saved the village. As she got out of bed and began to dress, the healer continued. "But you shouldn't push yourself too hard, Anika. You used a lot of magic to defeat that creature, and it took a toll on your body. You need to rest and recover." Anika nodded, but she couldn't help feeling restless. She wanted to do more, to explore the world and discover new magic. She had always dreamed of becoming a great mage, and she knew that defeating the monster was only the beginning. As she left the healer's home and made her way back to her own hut, Anika couldn't shake the feeling that her destiny was calling her to something greater. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Anika spent the next few days recovering and helping the villagers clean up the aftermath of the monster attack. The village was in good spirits, and they celebrated their victory with feasting and dancing. Anika was hailed as a hero and was showered with gratitude and gifts. But as the excitement died down, Anika's restlessness grew. She knew that there was more to her magic than what she had learned from the village elders. She wanted to explore the world and discover new magic, to become the great mage she had always dreamed of being. One day, as she sat in her hut, she received an unexpected visitor. It was a mage, dressed in dark robes and carrying a staff. Anika recognized him as one of the wandering mages she had heard about in stories. "Greetings, young mage," said the visitor. "I have heard of your heroic deeds in this village. You possess great power, but you have barely scratched the surface of what magic can do." Anika was intrigued. "What do you mean?" The mage smiled. "I am a teacher of magic, and I believe that you have the potential to become a great mage. I would like to offer you the chance to study under me and learn the secrets of the arcane arts." Anika's heart raced with excitement. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I will come with you." The mage nodded. "Very well. We leave at dawn." Anika spent the rest of the day saying goodbye to the villagers and preparing for her journey. She packed her belongings and said a tearful farewell to the village healer, who had become like a mother to her. As she walked out of the village, she looked back at the place she had called home for so long. She knew that she would miss the familiar faces and the simple way of life, but she was ready for the adventure that awaited her. With a determined smile, Anika set off with the mage into the unknown, ready to discover the true potential of her magic and to write her own destiny. As they walked along the dimly lit path, Amara couldn't help but feel uneasy. The darkness was suffocating, and every little sound seemed to echo in the eerie silence. She looked over at Darian, who seemed to be just as uneasy as she was. "Do you hear that?" he asked, stopping in his tracks. Amara listened, and in the distance, she could hear a faint whispering. "What is that?" she whispered, her heart racing. Darian grabbed her hand, and they cautiously continued forward. As they got closer, the whispers grew louder, and Amara could now make out individual voices. It sounded like a group of people chanting in a language she didn't understand. They emerged from the darkness into a large clearing, where a group of hooded figures stood around a bonfire. The chanting stopped as they approached, and the figures turned to face them. "What brings you to this place, one of the figures asked in a deep, ominous voice. "We're just passing through," Darian replied, trying to keep his voice steady. The figures huddled together and whispered among themselves before turning back to Amara and Darian. "You may pass, but be warned, this forest is not safe. You would do well to turn back now." Amara and Darian nodded, and as they turned to leave, they heard the chanting start up again behind them. They quickened their pace, eager to get as far away from the eerie ritual as possible. As they walked, the trees began to thin out, and the ground became softer and spongier. Before long, they emerged from the forest into a vast swamp. The air was thick with the stench of rotting vegetation, and the ground squelched under their feet. "We have to keep moving," Amara said, trying not to gag on the putrid smell. Darian nodded in agreement, and they trudged through the swamp, their boots sinking into the muck with every step. As they walked, Amara noticed something moving in the water ahead of them. "Darian, look," she whispered, pointing to the water. They watched as a large, shadowy figure slithered through the murky water, disappearing just as quickly as it had appeared. "We have to be careful," Darian warned, his hand on the hilt of his sword. They continued forward, their eyes scanning the water for any sign of danger. As they neared the other side of the swamp, the ground became firmer, and the air began to clear. "We made it," Amara said with a sigh of relief. But their relief was short-lived, as they soon realized that they were not alone. In the distance, they could see a group of armed men approaching, their weapons drawn. "What do we do?" Amara whispered, her heart pounding in her chest. "We fight," Darian said, determination in his voice. And with that, they drew their weapons and charged towards their attackers. "Darian, look," she whispered, pointing to the water. They watched as a large, shadowy figure slithered through the murky water, disappearing just as quickly as it had appeared. "We have to be careful," Darian warned, his hand on the hilt of his sword. They continued forward, their eyes scanning the water for any sign of danger. As they neared the other side of the swamp, the ground became firmer, and the air began to clear. "We made it," Amara said with a sigh of relief. As the group emerged from the cave, they were greeted by a breathtaking sight. The lush greenery of the forest stretched out before them, dotted with brightly colored flowers and tall trees reaching for the sky. A gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers and fresh leaves, lifting their spirits and filling them with hope. As they walked further into the forest, the group encountered a small stream, its crystal-clear water sparkling in the sunlight. They paused to drink and splash their faces, feeling the cool water wash away the grime and dirt from their long journey. As they continued on, they spotted a clearing up ahead and made their way towards it. As they entered the clearing, they saw a group of creatures gathered around a small fire, roasting what appeared to be some sort of meat on sticks. The creatures were unlike anything the group had ever seen before. They were small and furry, with long pointed ears and big, curious eyes. They looked up as the group approached, but instead of being afraid, they smiled and offered them some of the roasted meat. The group gratefully accepted the food, and as they ate, they talked to the creatures, learning that they were a group of forest sprites who lived in the woods. The sprites were friendly and welcoming, and they invited the group to stay and rest for a while. As they sat around the fire, the group realized that they had not had a moment of peace or rest since they had left the village. They were grateful for the respite and took the opportunity to relax and enjoy the beauty of the forest. As the sun began to set, the sprites bid them farewell, but not before giving them a small pouch of herbs and potions to aid them on their journey. The group thanked them and continued on, feeling more hopeful and determined than ever before. They still had a long way to go, but with the help of the forest sprites and the magic of the forest, they knew they could make it to their destination. They set off once more, feeling lighter and stronger than they had in a long time. As the sun rose the next day, Ava found herself in a small clearing. She sat on a fallen log, the events of the previous night still fresh in her mind. She couldn't believe what she had seen and heard. The demon, the portal, and the warning that she had to find the others before it was too late. Ava knew that she had to act fast, but she didn't know where to begin. She didn't even know if the others were still alive or if they had been taken by the demon. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to focus her thoughts. Suddenly, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She jumped, startled, and turned to see a familiar face. "Jackson," she exclaimed, relieved to see her friend. "I thought you were gone." "I was, but I came back when I heard what happened," Jackson said, his expression serious. "We need to find the others and figure out what to do next." Ava nodded, feeling a sense of hope. She wasn't alone in this. She had her friends, and together, they would find a way to stop the demon and save their world. With a determined look in her eye, Ava stood up and followed Jackson into the woods, ready for whatever lay ahead.